you from beautiful Northwest Montana. It's time for the Mary Todd Show. And here's your host, Mary Todd.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mary Todd Show. I'm super excited today. I don't have my co-host, Tony Sword, with me, unfortunately, but I do have two of my favorite men, my husband, Rick Todd, and my son, John Todd. He's my second born out of four boys. Today, we're going to talk about that crazy flight, the crash, the airplane, the Endeavour flight, the 4819 flight that crashed in Canada. My son, John, is a pilot with American Airlines, and he's also the owner of the Blue Duck here in Kalispell, Montana, which is a golf links indoor. Fabulous. You have to try it. We talked about it in a couple of shows ago. He's the owner of that. And then my husband, Rick, flew for American Airlines for years and years and was a Navy pilot. They'll get into more than that. But what I think is so funny, they'll be all technical, but I'm thinking of all the brouhaha that has gone into this whole thing, blaming Donald Trump for an airplane that crashed in Canada. How could that possibly be? Jim, could you just play that clip of the view of the ladies breaking down?
Before you go, we've talked about the media's tactics against the Trump administration, and there is nothing they will not seek to blame on him, including a Delta plane crash landing in Canada. Thankfully, nobody lost their lives. The usual suspects on The View, including Sunny Hostin, Joy Behar, said plenty of silly stuff, and Whoopi Goldberg wasn't going to miss out on the ill-informed hysteria either.
I have been panicking over all this insanity with these planes.
Yeah.
You know, and there's all kinds of stuff going on. Like, so let's start with the string of mass firings by Elon Musk's Doge has sparked a lot of chaos, confusion, and fear because Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy is defending the firing of 400 FAA workers. But former Secretary Pete Buttigieg slammed the firings of employees.
It's enough of that. Incredible. But as we watch this astonishing footage of passengers being rescued from the crash plane, tell me about some of the media hysteria and misinformation about who is to blame for this crash.
Oh gosh, they try to blame everything on Trump, and then anything good he does, they won't give him any credit. It's utterly, utterly disgusting. I'll just say about our Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy. This is an incredible, incredible human being. Watch closely what he does with that office. He's going to do amazing, amazing things. And again, it all comes down to the fact that they cannot admit how incompetent they have become on the left, how utterly divorced from the needs of the average American. And this is all just projection, Rita. Every accusation from the Democrats is a confession. They cannot stand the efficiency with which Donald Trump is carrying out the mandate given to him by the American people. It's going to be a long 4 years for them, that's for sure.
So welcome to the show.
J.D. Vance keeps up his current form. It may be a long.
Welcome to the show, Rick.
Thank you.
Welcome to the show,
I'll
John.
let you know I'm a big fan.
You're a big fan of the show? Well, thank you. Welcome, John. My beloved second-born.
Thank you for having me. Dad stole my dad line. I'm a new father, and I felt like I was going to say big fan as well. So thanks for stealing my line, Dad. Appreciate it.
Well, I want you to know I'm wearing the necklace you gave me for Christmas. So I just wanted I wanted to get credit for that.
I noticed.
Thank you.
I noticed. Is the price tag still on it?
Yes. It was very expensive, very expensive. Well, these are my two favorite. Well, I have three favorite pilots because two of my sons are professional pilots and my husband was for years. He's retired now. But I've asked you men to be on the show to explain what happened in your estimation. And my job is going to be to say, if you get all nerdy on me, I'm going to stop you and say, get down and talk like a normal human being. So, Rick, do you want to start?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say that's an incredible clip that you put on there. It's perfectly describes how inept the mainstream media is. How would anybody how would anybody trust women that have that kind of mentality? First of all, they're talking about cuts in the FAA. The plane crashed in Canada. It's not even part of the FAA either. So how I will start is actually, one thing is I wanted to bring John on, because John is actually got a type rating in the actual airplane it flies, so that actually crashed. You want to talk about that, John?
Oh, yeah, sure. I would like to first start off to say I'm surprised they didn't blame climate change for over 22 knots of wind, of a quartering headwind going into the runway. And also, I want to thank you, Mom, for letting Dad and I talk aviation, because usually she puts a quick stop to that. So this is kind of a nice change.
Well, I start yawning.
Yeah.
And then I leave the room.
Also, on a serious note, how grateful that we are that we could discuss this crash without any casualties involved. And that's a huge blessing, I think. And it's nice that we could be able to analyze this, look at it, and talk about it with everyone back at home safe. So I just wanted to add that as well.
Very good point. So John, Dad asked you about the airplane that you flew that you have a type rating in.
Yeah, so I flew the CRJ 200, 700, 900. They're the same type rating. 3 different aircraft, basically just shorter to longer. I flew the 900, 200, and 700. I got about 7,000 hours in that aircraft. I flew it over a period of about 9 years, and it was a great aircraft. This is a pretty standard flight, and I know Dad has videos that we could analyze and look at it and see what happened. But this aircraft comes. What's up? What's that, Dad?
Why don't we go into it, since you actually brought that up? We'll get the clearance, the tower talking to the airplane just at the beginning. So if we could put up the audio file, and then we can talk about that briefly.
Want me to play the audio file?
Audio file, yeah.
Toronto Tower, Endeavor 4819, unpack, runway 23. Endeavor 4819, Toronto Tower, wind 270, 23, gust 33, clear to line on rate 23. You might get a slight bump in the glide path. There'll be an aircraft in front of it. Okay. Clear to land, 23, Endeavor 4819.
Okay, they've just been cleared to land, and they said they were landing on runway 23. They gave winds of 270 at 33. That would be a right to left cornering crosswind, and that's not, although it is gusty. The winds are gusty, but it's not out of the limits. Do you remember what the limits are as far as landing with a crosswind, John?
I believe that the CRJs, the different variants had different crosswind limitations, but the only reason why that is because when aircraft are tested, they can only test out what the wind max was on that day when they certified it. Mm-hmm. So that's why it varies between aircraft to aircraft. The 787 that I'm currently on has a maximum crosswind of 37 knots. Mm-hmm. You know, you wonder why the odd number, just because that's what the winds got up that day. But the 787-900 is a crosswind maximum of 40 knots because it was just certified on that day. But I believe it was a 35 knot maximum crosswind on the CRJ.
So with a 40 degree difference, we're talking about was well within limits of its.
And you don't factor, gust factor is not factored in with a crosswind limitation. Yeah. So if they say winds at 22 knots, gusting at 33, whatever that AIDA said, it's 22 knots. That's what you're factoring in with all the landing data.
Great. Now, Jim, if we could go into the actual, let's show the approach with the editing involved.
Share the screen so John can see.
Okay. All right. He's going to share the screen with John.
So, John, do you agree with the view that President Trump, as DEI, taking it out and all those people getting fired is the reason this plane crashed? That's my question.
Well, it's like, man, he's working fast, to get all these planes crashed. I mean, we've seen, I believe the data was 87 crashes in 2025 on record already. That's around the world. So he's working fast then, Mom, if it was Trump's fault. So.
Well, I think the women on The View must be, they are on The View. They must be. Yeah.
Oh, it's The View, it's a very credible source.
Yeah, very credible
of information,
source.
Yes.
Who would ever trust that? That's listen to it or trust it is just amazing to me.
Okay, so we get this shared. If not, we'll have to.
Okay.
Okay. We're just about there.
Jim's just about there.
no.
So as you can see on this, I actually obviously looked at this footage quite a few times, and I didn't really see anything out of the ordinary on the approach. And Dad's familiar. We've actually trained on the same aircraft once in our careers together. And when you're coming in for an approach, there's two calls. You call out stable at 1,000 feet, stable at 500 feet. And when you're around 500 feet, your usual descent rate would be about 500 to 600 feet per minute, which would be a stable approach. And once you get it closer to the approach end of the runway, that levels out, and you go into what's called a flare to reduce your sink rate and develop more lift so the plane can land smoothly. But as you can see on that footage, they didn't transition into a flare whatsoever. It looked like it was going down at least 500, 600 feet per minute on impact.
Mm-hmm.
So the most interesting thing I heard you say there, John, was that you and Dad trained together?
That's right. Yes, that's what we did. We trained together.
All
yeah,
right.
It was very fascinating.
How was that?
The instructor was not used to a relationship like we had in the cockpit. I'll tell you that much. He said, "Never heard a first officer call a captain that before." And no name calling, but just, yeah, definitely familiar with each other. We'll go as far to say that. So.
As I recall, I remember you calling me once during that training saying, I don't think Dad's taking this very seriously. Now, he can't be fired anymore, but I remember that.
Well, that tends to happen when you've been flying in the same airline for over 30 years. You tend to care a little bit less, but it was a fun and very interesting experience. I enjoyed it very much.
All right. Now that I've gotten a little levity, you guys get back to your nerdy talk.
Okay. Well, actually, Jim, if we could bring up the edited version. I didn't actually see the full view, but I'll point out some things if I.
Okay, you won't be able to see it, but everybody else will.
Okay, go ahead.
There's only so many screens. There we go.
Okay.
Let's start it right now. There we go. 1, 2, 3.
You'll notice that as it slowed down, that if you look closely where the wing is, you'll see a wisp of smoke come up. It looks like smoke, but it appears to me that it actually is snow. Now, John pointed out the fact that he didn't think they corrected or slowed the descent rate, but it appears that I was thinking that the airplane might have been well right of center line, and actually the wingtip hit the area beyond the runway that is not maintained. So that caused it to flip over and roll down the runway. Actually, some of the firsthand, there's a gentleman that was interviewed right after the crash, and he said that once they touched down, it felt like their movement was going to sideways. So it appears like it caught on the side of the runway and was pulled over. So do you want to add something to that, John?
Dad, I was looking at the footage. It's just too hard to tell with that footage, particularly to pass judgment or to make, a call of actually what happened on there. I feel like almost, and I'm not saying this in a rude way, it's almost irrelevant because I was speaking with a pilot friend of mine, and I knew that the pilot was a Czech airman,
Mm-hmm.
and I believe the first officer was a new female first officer being trained. And if there's any unstable approach on that aircraft, we've been trained over and over again to go around. If there's any, we do things we're called threat mitigation. So we brief them on the approach. If there's a gusty wind factor, we're going to say if we have any gusty winds or we get wind shear calls or the plane doesn't seem like it's going to fly or you lose flare, you're going to call an immediate go around. And that's what the Czech airman should have done, being the leadership role he was in. So regardless of what happened on the ground, that should have been an immediate go around call.
Yeah, I actually heard, I was wondering if it was IOE, which stands for Initial Operating Experience, that a Czech airman goes around with a new pilot in order to get them their initial qualifications. But she had been with the airline, from my research, about a year. So I don't know if it was a line check.
Was she a DEI hire?
Well, that's interesting that you brought that up, because I did do some DEI does not belong in recruitment for
It doesn't
airline.
belong anywhere.
It doesn't belong anywhere. If you look, and I guess I'm going to throw Endeavor under the bus. I did have a video of them, their pilot recruitment, and they basically made fun of people that had were traditionally pilots. And I hate to say this, for the most part, it's all men, but they were minimizing the input of men, that men don't even like belong in the cockpit. It should be women. What people don't know, to get into a job like this, it actually takes years and years of experience. Even though that she was a young pilot and I think didn't have that many hours, I think the minimum, you have to have some hours, but a significant amount of hours to get hired on with a regional. Do you remember what that is, John?
She was on a restricted ATP. I believe she was hired around 1,000 hours, got a restricted ATP. So that means she can't be in a command of an aircraft, but she could be hired with a regional airline because she went through a 4-year aviation degree program.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that would have been on an airplane that was quite, just not usually very small airplanes and not used to intensive airline environment.
Yeah, regional airlines are used as a stepping stone to usually for career progression for younger pilots to gain experience to get hired on with the majors. So they have flow through programs and things of that nature in order to get to the major airlines. So she was a low time pilot.
So that my point of bringing the whole thing up is that a lot of men, and mostly men, there are women that are actually excellent. And when they start doing these DEI hirings, it minimizes what those women have done to get where they've done. A lot of them are. I'm sure John can testify. We had a friend that actually helped, a female friend that helped John get in. She was an Air Force pilot. They are tremendous pilots, but it minimized what they did to do it. It also minimizes what John did, I did, all of us did in order to get there, and to lower the requirements to get just because they happen to be a female or transsexual or whatever. It's crazy. And we can't be operating a country, our entire aviation industry that way. Do you have something to say on that, Johnny?
Oh yeah, I do believe that the healthiest airline is one ran off of meritocracy. So I believe it's merit based, but not just merit on putting in your time. Is you have to be skilled and you have to show skill on every level in training every single year to make sure you're still safe. And that's what the airlines have done for the last 100 years and what they should continue to do. And I was going to bring up that point, Dad, of when you do hire somebody out of that doesn't have the skills or the time just to check off a box, it takes away from those people who are highly skilled, the highly skilled women that I've flown with, any background. I've flown with anybody of any background that have been amazing pilots. And so the damage it does to them when people walk up to the cockpit and look in there and now immediately judge just based off of some kind of, announcement one of the airlines makes that they want to hire 50% women or whatever color, gender, quota that they want to fill. So that's the problem that I have with it, especially for those people who definitely earn their seat in the cockpit.
Yes, and it's actually what we got to stop throughout our society. We should be, in order to be excellent as a nation, and to ensure that we're a productive as society and everything runs well, everybody needs to put up the best they can, put their best foot forward in order to make things good.
It reminded me of I was thinking about this when Mom called me to ask if I wanted to discuss it with her today. Was Clarence Thomas?
Oh, God, yeah.
When Clarence Thomas was a product of affirmative action when it was born in that era, and he made it through Yale Law School, got in, and the first firm that he went to in his interview, they asked, "Oh, so you're part of the affirmative action program?" Even though completely merit-based, had the grades, had everything he needed to do, top of his class in Yale, but he felt that in his entire career just because of what affirmative action did for people who actually deserved it. You know, and it's the same thing with flying airplanes and public safety. Where are these airlines' loyalty lies? Is it under is it under political ideology, or is it under public safety? So
That is a really, really good point, John. And I think that with Clarence Thomas is a perfect example. And I remember going through the whole rigmarole when he became the justice, Supreme Court justice. And then what they put that man through was unbelievable. So
he called it a high-tech lynching.
High-tech lynching. And it really does take away. And you look right now at women's sports, that men now can be in women's sports. Our dear President Trump is putting an end to it, but it's still going on. They're just changing the terminology, and it ruins everything for women that are really good at what they're doing and cannot possibly compete against a man. This is shocking, but there is a difference between men and women.
Praise God.
Praise God. So Rick and I raised, we've been married 47 years and to each other, and which has been really good. And we raised 4 boys. And also we had a male dog most of the time, a little bit of the Gus. And so I had to put up with a lot of this male stuff and male chauvinist things against women. But I will say that I always rose to the occasion and did what God has called me to do. And our men, my sons and my husband, have always been my biggest backers. And I love and appreciate each and every one of them.
You had to put up with a lot of airplane talk, too.
Oh, my gosh. All this airplane talk. Yeah, especially when you're in the Navy.
I was about to say, Mother, I was talking to my wife I was watching the episode yesterday, and I noticed for 70 years old, you look absolutely stunning.
Well, I'm 69 for one. I'm 69 for one.
75 years old, whatever it is.
97 years old. I'm doing really good. Thank you, John.
I just told her, I'm like, those water weight workouts must be really going well for her, out there.
Thank you. Yeah. Woo, woo, woo. I appreciate the compliment, and especially that you watch my show. That is great. But
I'm coming to visit soon, so I know you're going to test me.
I cannot wait, and I want to see your little son Bolton, who is so cute, Bolton Shane, and he is 6 months old almost, and so almost. Is he 6 already?
Almost.
Yeah.
So on the 29th.
Yeah, yeah. He's just a doll. So John, how do you think this is all going to play out in the media? Do you think it's going to be something that will be good for our president and the administration because it's so crazy what the media is saying?
The media, I think we can kind of read media like the book, what kind of narrative they're going to take on this. But, I think the public is what really wants to go back to values and what actually makes sense, right? So what litigation goes through, who knows? They might start litigating. The last big airline crash before DC was in 2009 with the Colgan aircraft, the crash for the Colgan flight. And what they changed was the FAR rules for 117 and the rest rules for crews. And they did all that for litigation. Who knows what's going to happen this round? Maybe they're going to say, we can't trust human error anymore. So they'll start implementing AI. I have no idea, but it'll be interesting to see what's going down the pike and what the media or what kind of angle they're going to try to pull there. So
it'll be very interesting. Well, do you have anything more, dear?
No. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
John, do you have
I will say one thing, and you could edit this out if you want, but
okay.
I would every time I flew a crosswind land, because we don't get them that often, and this was, I would say, above a standard day of landing. I think most pilots can agree with me. A lot of their best landings have been in quartering crosswind or crosswind landings, because that's when a pilot focuses the most. And I love crosswind landings. I was telling Danny about it today, where
Danny's your wife.
Felt like it was, Danny is my wife, and I said it reminded me when I used to play competitive sports and I was a catcher, and I used to love it when guys stole on me because it was a challenge and I wanted to try to beat a guy. So if there's a crosswind, you want a pilot out there who wants weather like that, who wants to challenge themselves. And that's how pilots are trained at at airlines. And and that's what the public should be confident in their pilots.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to enjoy when I was in training that you could dial up the crosswind correct. It's way above the limit. And I think it's with you, John, that we actually, let's see if we can take it to 35 knots.
They go to 50 knots. The last simulator training, they failed a single engine on us, and I had to hand fly it single engine 50 knot crosswind. So it's a completely doable procedure or maneuver that people shouldn't worry just because there's gusty winds out there. Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the data that comes out in this aircraft once we get, the voice data recorder and all the information from the FAA once it comes out, and we can make a better
and the flight data
analysis.
I'd like to see where it actually touched down on the runway.
So
exactly.
Because I'm a very, very proud mother, and I think that you have done an amazing job with your career. You've been a captain with, I won't say the airlines, but major. And there's so many young boys and even girls want to be where you are now. Could you just, as we end this show, tell us how you got where you got today, what you had to go through, the kind of training, and how it all started?
Well, I would say the number one reason I got into aviation was my dad. I mean, 100%. I mean, it was just something that he, this is not even about the show, and it might get me emotional, but he always, ever since I was a kid, always told me to do what I wanted to do and he thought I was talented in. He'd always say, John, you should be an actor. You should do this and that. And
you're funny.
He even said when I laid sod the right way, you should lay sod for a living. You should be a trash man.
That was his mother, not him.
That was when when the grades weren't going so well. He told me he had different ideas depending on the time of my life, but he when my young adult years, he said he sat me down and talked to me. What do you want to do? And I said I wanted to pursue aviation, and he believed in me. And that's when I started my career. I started at a really young age, and he taught me how to get there at the quickest way possible, because he preached seniority, seniority, seniority. Because if you have seniority, you can get the schedules, you can get the aircraft, you can get hired. And it started with small regional airlines, similar to the one in this last incident. And I stayed there, worked my way up, and now it's exactly what he preached. I'm able to be with my family as much as possible and to fly to the best places in the world. So thank you, Dad.
Yeah, you're welcome, son.
What a good, I love that.
See, I went the long way around. I was never senior. That's why I was not home as much.
Well, you were a military
you're protecting our country, Dad. I can't, everyone's like, oh, you take the military route. And, it is a very honorable thing you did by flying for the U.S. military and Navy, flying on those small ships. Calling the ball, landing it. Top Gun over there, Dad. Well done.
Well, thank you so much, son, for being on our show. Thank you, dear, for being on our show. I'd love to have you back, John, just to talk about life, that we can bring up stories about your dad and your brothers, and just have you back on. And I'd love to have you back on at some point, dear. Yeah.
I would love to tell stories about Dad.
I know.
Oh, no,
the Rydell shorts, the school bus.
The compliments are over.
We can the white whale overboard. We can do a whole bunch of good stories about Dad.
I'm used to being run over by the bus.
Well, our producer just said we could have you in studio when you come to town. So when are you flying in?
Hopefully soon,
Good. I miss you.
It's all a negotiation now, being married, it's all negotiation.
I know. And you have a baby. Well, yes, I miss you and I love you.
I know that we're looking forward to, you still haven't been here yet too. So we're looking forward to having you out here.
Yeah,
we'll do a podcast out here.
Okay. All right. Love you, son.
Love you, son.
Love you too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.